guys, so this is my first video with my face, and in this video we're going to make this simple fan edit in Alight Motion. This is actually a remake of this edit. You can find the link in the description. Also, I think this video will be helpful for those of you who want to learn the full process of editing, because there are already so many videos about effects. So first we have to create a new project, obviously. Then I'll choose 1:1 aspect ratio for this edit. I'll keep the frame rate 18 because 30 I think will be very smooth for this kind of style. Also, you can change the frame rate later, so you don't have to worry about that. If you want to follow this tutorial and make a remake of this edit, you can actually download this video from the description. Then select the video, and from here you can extract the audio. You can also keep the video to know where are the transitions and where are the effects. And to add marks, you can click here. I have marked all the transitions as you can see here. Now let me hide this video by clicking here. And also make sure you know some basics of Alight Motion, otherwise it will be very confusing. Now first we are going to add two images, so I'll click on the plus icon. Now I'll crop it from the second mark, and I'm going to change the size later. Let's add the second image, so it will start from here and it will end at the same place. So now we have two images. Now I'll select the first image and make it bigger, and I'll try to keep the face at the center. Now I'll add a rectangle shape, and from here I'll fill the screen, and I'll crop it from here and bring this down. Now I'll select these two layers and click on this option. This will create a mask of that shape, so anything inside the mask will be visible. It will create a group for us, and you can easily replace the image if you want. And also you can replace the image in this way, so you have to select the image and go to color and fill, and if you click here you can replace the image. But the problem is that it have to be the same aspect ratio, otherwise the image will be stretched. So I suggest you to mask the images, and later on you can just delete this image and add another layer of image here. So masking your images is a better option, and it also moves the pivot point to the center. Sometimes the pivot point moves when your image is not at the center. So it takes a little more time, but I suggest you to mask these images. So now we have the first image and we have to mask the second image. So I'll add another shape and I'll crop it from here. Now this is not going to be a square. I'm going to change the size to something like this. And also let me move this image. Now select this option, it will keep anything which is inside that box. And if you select the other option, it will keep everything which is outside the box, which we don't want. So I'll undo this and select the two layers and select this option. Now this is perfect. Let me increase the size of this layer. We have to add a zoom out effect in the first image. So I'll select the first image, go to move and transform. Here select size and add a keyframe here. This is the normal size in this keyframe. Add one more keyframe before it, and here you have to increase the size and keep this keyframe at the beginning. Then add this graph here. So now we have a zoom out effect. Now for this image you have to add a bounce effect, and that is also very easy. You have to select the layer, go to move and transform, select size, add a keyframe and keep this keyframe at the end. And in the second one I'm going to make it smaller and keep this keyframe at the beginning. Now to add a bounce effect you have to go to the graph editor, and here click on this option, and this graph will give you the bounce effect. As you can see here, I just want a simple bounce, so the default graph is good I think, and you have the zoom out effect and a bounce effect. Now I'll group these two layers, and I'm going to click on this option. This is not going to create any mask, it will just group them together. Now we have to add a second zoom effect over here, and for that I'll select the group, go to move and transform, and here click on size, add a keyframe and keep this at the beginning. Now I'll add a second keyframe and here increase the size and keep this keyframe at the end. I want the zoom effect here in the center, so I'll go to the graph editor and we're going to use this graph where the line is going up at the center, so we get the zoom in effect at the center. So this is the first effect. Later on I'm going to add shake in this layer. Now let's move on to the second effect. So here we have to add 3 images, so let me quickly add those images. So here I have added 3 images and I have cropped them at the center of the mark. So between these two marks the image is changing, and between these two marks another image is changing. Now this is optional, but I like to keep all the faces at the same place, so when the image changes our focus don't move. And you can do that very easily by adding a shape. And now I'll increase the size of it and decrease the opacity. Now I'll move every image so that the face is inside this box. So I'll select the first image and move it and make it a little more bigger. Don't worry about the black sides, we're going to mask that out. Now we can delete this and add a rectangle shape. Now I'm going to crop it over here. Now I'll increase the sides like this and make it more wider. This is okay, I think. Now I'll group all these images and then select the group and the rectangle and click here, and this will keep everything which is inside that shape. So now we have this group with changing images and we only have to animate this, which is super simple. You have to select the group, go to move and transform. In position, add a keyframe. In this keyframe you have to move the image over here, and I'm going to keep this keyframe in the beginning. Now in the center I'll add a second keyframe and move it over here. Now between these two keyframes we want the movement at the center, so we're going to add the same kind of graph. So the line is going up in the center, that's why the movement will be at the center. Now in the last keyframe I'll move it to the center and keep this keyframe at the end, and here also we're going to add the same kind of graph. Now let's check how it looks. This looks pretty good. Now I'll go inside the group by clicking on edit group, and here we have to add some text. So I'll click on the plus icon and select text. I'll change the color to white, and you can center the text by clicking here. I also want to give this a glow effect, so you can go to border and shadow. You can directly add a glow effect from the effects, or you can go to border and shadow, and from here enable shadow, change the color to white, and I'll increase the size. Now decrease the position to 0. So now we have a simple glow effect. Now I'll crop this layer when the image changes, and also change the text. So this is the bug in Alight Motion when the group shrinks in size. You have to select the group if this happens with you, and then come at the mark and extend the layer. So now we have the text and the images. Now let's add an animated box from this mark. So click on the plus icon and add a shape. I'll crop it from here and rotate this. I'll add a keyframe and keep this at the beginning, and I'll add a second keyframe and I'll rotate this and keep this keyframe at the end and add this type of graph. Let's see how it looks. Actually there is too much rotation, so we need to. So in the first keyframe I'll change the value to something like 18 or maybe 0. 0 is good, I think. Yeah, this is better. So we're going to copy this graph and select size. Here add a keyframe and I'll change the size to 0 and keep this keyframe at the beginning. Then I'll add one more keyframe and here increase the size to around 300, and I'll keep this keyframe at the end, then add the same graph. So this is how the box will look. Now duplicate this layer, so select it, and from here you can duplicate the layer. In one layer I'll change the fill to nothing. So now this is transparent and we can add a border. So I'll enable stroke and select this option so that we get a sharp edge, and I'll change the color to white. Now in the second rectangle I'll select the layer and go to effects, add effects. In others you can find copy background effect, so add that. Again click on add effects, and inside color and light you can find saturation. Add this effect and change the saturation to 0. Sorry, I mean -100. So inside the box the saturation will be 0. This copy background layer actually works like an adjustment layer, like in After Effects. So this is how it looks. Now we have to add one more thing, that is you have to click on the plus icon and go to freehand drawing, and here I'm going to draw a shape like this. I'm sorry, I'm very bad in drawing. Let's keep the layer over here and I'll bring it down below all the layers and crop it from here. Now we have to animate this line, so select the drawing and go to effects and click on add effects. Here in drawing and edge you can find drawing progress. Here select end and add a keyframe and keep this at the end. Keep the end keyframe at the end. Now add one more keyframe, and here you have to decrease the end and keep this keyframe at the beginning and add this kind of graph over here. We forgot to do one thing, that is you have to add a pinch effect in the end of this layer, and it is super simple. Go to effects and click on add effects. In distortion and warp you can find pinch effect. Here change the strength to 0, so this will have no effect on the layer. Now add a keyframe and keep this at the center Add one more keyframe, and here you have to decrease the strength. Now you have to keep the keyframe at the end, and let's increase the radius. So I'm going to keep the radius around 0.7, and in strength I forgot to add a curve, so add this kind of curve over here. So this is how you add a pinch effect. We can also add the pinch effect here, so we have to select all these layers and then group them together by clicking here. Now to add the pinch effect, I'll copy the effect from here and then select this group and paste it over here. Actually, let me check the keyframes. I'll move this keyframe over here. For the next effect, let me add the next two images. So I have the two images, and you also have to mask these images in the shape of a square. So I'll add a square. Let me make this a little more bigger. Now I'll move it over here and crop it from this side and duplicate this layer. We have to match the size, so let me crop it from here again. So now we have two images and two rectangle, square. Now we have to mask this, but before that let me move this image so that her face comes in the box. You can reduce the transparency if you want to see what is in the background. Now select the two layers and click here. Now for the second image, I'm going to move the image. By the way, make sure the box is of the same size. Now I'll select these two layers and click here to mask. So now we have two images, and here I'll turn on the grid. Now this short group, this will be on the left side, and I'm going to keep it at the distance of 3 columns. And for the next image, first I'll add a keyframe of position. Now in the next keyframe, I'll move it, and I'll also keep the same distance, that is 3 columns. Now this keyframe I'll keep it at the end, and the other one I'll keep it at the beginning. We want the movement at the center, so we'll add the same kind of graph which I've used before. And we'll also add a zoom out effect, so go to size and here add a keyframe and keep this over here. Add one more keyframe, and here I'll increase the size and keep this keyframe at the beginning. Now here I'll add this graph. Now let's animate the second image, but first actually let me show you what I have animated over here. So this will zoom out and move over here. Now for the second group, I'll select this and go to move and transform. Here add a keyframe of position and keep this at the end. Then I'll add one more keyframe and move it out from the screen. Now keep this keyframe at the beginning and add this kind of graph over here. Actually I have to extend these layers to this point. So come at this point and select the group and click on this option. This will keep the keyframes at their position but extend the layer, and also this layer. Now from here we're going to add a heart shape, so click on the plus icon and here you can find a heart shape. Now I'll crop it from here and reduce the size. Now here I'll add a keyframe and keep this at this point and add one more keyframe, and here I'll reduce the size to 0 and keep this at the beginning. Now here I'll add this graph. Now for this layer I'll disable the fill and add a stroke of white color. You can choose any color you want. Now for the background I'll add a video. You can find the download link in the description. So this is the video. I'll crop this layer. I actually need this part of the video, and I'll keep this layer below everything else. Now to make this black and white, you can go to effects, and in color and light you can find this threshold effect. Now adjust the threshold until it becomes black. Now we have to add some shakes, like here I'm going to add a shake, and then also here. You can watch this video if you want to learn shake in details, and here I'm going to just quickly make a simple shake. But first I'll mask all these layers so that I can put them in one group. So let me add a shape. I'll fill the screen with the shape and then crop it. Now I'll select all these layers other than the background layer and mask them together by clicking here. Now the pivot point is at the center, as you can see, otherwise it was here before. Also we have to add motion blur to these layers because we have not added any motion blur. We can add that later. You can just click on the layers and go to add effects, and in blur you can find the motion blur effect. So to add the shakes, I'll select the layer, go to effects, click on add effects, and in move and transform first I'll add oscillate effect. So first I'll change the frequency to around 2.5 and the angle will be 90 because we want a vertical shake. Now here in magnitude I'll reduce it to around 5 or 6 and add a keyframe. Then I'll keep this keyframe at the end, maybe at the center, not the end. Now I'll add one more keyframe of magnitude and here I'll increase it to around 300 and keep this at the beginning and use this kind of graph over here. So this is a very light shake. Now we can also add swing effect, and same inside move and transform you can find swing effect. Here I'll increase the frequency to around 2.5 and the angle 1 will be -1. Make sure you keep one angle negative and the other angle positive so that it swings in two directions instead of just one. And here I'll keep the angle 1. Let's see how it looks. It actually looks pretty good. Now let's copy these effects, and also I'll click on add effects and add the motion blur effect. Here we have to add a shake effect and also a zoom in effect in this mark. So I'll select this group, go to move and transform, select size, and here add a keyframe. This will be here, this is the normal size, and after that it will be bigger in size, and I'll keep it over here. We need the zoom out effect at the center, so we're going to add this graph. Now here to add the shake, we can actually create a null, or you can just add it to this group also. So go to effects and paste the effect over here. You have to make few adjustments because the keyframes are at the beginning. In oscillate effect, you have to move the keyframes of magnitude. This will be at the end and this will be over here. In the last keyframe, I'll decrease it to 2, and in the first one I'll keep it around 60 or 70, and also add this graph over here. And also we don't need any shake before this mark, so I'll add one more keyframe over here and reduce the magnitude to 0. So here is the light shake when it zooms in. Also we need to adjust the pinch effect, so here I'll move this keyframe over here. And for the swing effect, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to change the angle to 0. So here we're going to add a keyframe of angle 1 and of angle 2 also. So here the values are -1 and +1. Then before this mark, we're going to add one more keyframe, and here we're going to change the value to 0 of both the angles. So before this mark we don't have any movement or anything, and after this mark we have a light shake and swing effect. To make this part of the video, you can check out this video. It is about raw and daddy style, and this part is very simple. You have to select all the layers, then you have to group them together. Now to make this group fast, you can click on this group, and from here you can increase the speed of the group. The flicker effect is very simple. I added a black rectangle. I added pulse opacity effect with this frequency, and that is how you get a flickering effect. So that is all for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one.